Hi there, it's Nicole here today with a card for the My Favorite Things sketch challenge over on their blog, and I am using the adorable You Make My Heart Spin stamps and dies with one of my favorite staple type of products from the new release, the Stitched Mod Rectangle Stacks, which I absolutely love. There's also the Mod Squares. So just a fantastic basic that makes creating kind of a unique frame really, really easy. I'm going to create just a simple stitched frame here today. A great way if you're limited on time, especially the holiday season is upon us. Our time is all limited. You still want to create an eye-catching, beautiful card. This is a card that does not take that long to create. The only thing is a little dry time if you add glossy accents. If you don't, even less. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of smooth white cardstock that I'm die cutting one of those stitched mod rectangles from. Then I'm going to keep both pieces, the frame and the stitched mod rectangle. On my stitched mod rectangle, I'm going to combine Blueprint Sketch with Salty Ocean Distress inks. Just do a nice smooth blend. These were die cut, this rectangle and frame, from Bristol Smooth cardstock. Much, much easier to get a beautiful blend on this cardstock with a little less work. You could still do it with a traditional white cardstock. All cardstocks are not the same, so you just kind of have to try it out and see if it works for you. But Bristol Smooth cardstock tends to really be reliable and you get a beautiful, easy blend. Watercolor cardstock would work as well. I'm going to spritz this with water from a distress sprayer and then blot it dry. This is an instant way to add the look of a snowy, wintry wonderland without a ton of additional work. No additional supplies needed. So very, very quick and easy. I also faded out that color as I got to. The color really is only about on 3/4 of that panel. That's because I want that bottom edge to kind of maybe look like snow, and without adding anything else for the snow. And I'm going to add a die cut little patch of ice that the bunny and bird are going to be ice skating on. I'm laying out my supplies, kind of seeing if everything is going to fit the way I think it's going to before I commit to stamping and coloring and die cutting. So I've got my card base here. This is a top fold card base, and I'm going to go ahead and attach my frame and my background piece. Now I want to pop the frame up just a little bit to give it some dimension, but before I do that, I want to adhere the distress inked panel directly to the card base. So I'm going to use that frame as a guide, put adhesive right down there in the center of my card, inlay that frame, and then I can remove that rectangle rather, remove the frame. And on this, I'm going to flip it over. And one of my favorite things to do is to use these thin foam adhesive squares from Scrapbook Adhesives. They are thinner than a lot of other foam tapes, but yet they give some nice dimension. This card is still going to fit in an envelope even though the dimensional frame is A2 sized. Sometimes if you use a different foam tape or a thicker foam tape, it can be a little tricky or tight to get a card into an envelope. This foam tape gives dimension, but it's so slight that it just is really fantastic. I love it. Next, I have a scrap of vellum here that I'm stamping the patch of ice on. Now, I stamped it the first time and I don't know what I did. I rocked the stamp or something and it just wasn't a very nice stamped image. So I went ahead and stamped it again right underneath. I'm going to ink up one of the greetings from You Make My Heart Spin, stamp that right on the ice, and then I'll sprinkle on a little white embossing powder. And then I want to heat set this. Now the ice would be fantastic as is, or I am even going to add some Wink of Stella to this to give it a little bit of a glittery finish if you want it to have that icy finish and want to eliminate any drying steps for glossy accents. But I thought it would be fun. I was kind of testing out something to see if it was going to work. And I have to tell you, at about the 2-hour mark, I wasn't so sure that what I had done was a good idea because it stayed wet for a pretty long time. Vellum is a little bit different than just regular cardstock. And so I wasn't sure. I've done this technique on cardstock many times where I've colored in the cardstock to kind of look like ice and let it, covered it with glossy accents, let it dry. It's one of my favorite things to do. I like that glossy finish. It gives that icy look. But I wanted to try it with the Vellum. And the Vellum really buckled up, which I knew it was going to. But what I was pleasantly surprised is the next morning, it was completely flat. So I'm thrilled. You can see through it. You can read the greeting easily, even though at the end of this video, you're going to think that it's not, since I needed to let it dry. But in the finished photos, it's completely flat. So I kind of just traced a little thin line of glossy accents around that stamped and embossed line that makes up the patch of ice. And then I laid it down onto my card base. Because I need this to dry and I knew it was going to take quite a bit of time to dry, I'm going to go ahead and add the Wink of Stella. This pin was a little bit dry, so I just grabbed a different one. You could also put a little water in this, I've heard. I've not tried it. And kind of reactivate the glitter. But I had another one that had a little bit more glitter in it, so I'm going to use it instead because I really want it to have that little sparkle shimmery look to it. And I'm just going to cover over the whole thing. Then I'm going to take my glossy accents and I'm going to apply a thin layer over this ice and then set it aside to dry while I work on the rest of the elements. By the time I get things colored, I think I maybe had to even run an errand in between here. By the time they're colored, die cut, and I have everything ready, the glossy accents is really dry to the touch, but not super, super dry. Like I said, I did let it set overnight completely, and it just laid back out flat. I have a scrap of Bristol Smooth cardstock now that I am stamping the bunny, the bird, and a trio of hearts on using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Then I'm going to color all of these in with some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I've kind of been addicted to using these lately. Very quick coloring, but so much fun to do. And on the Bristol Smooth cardstock, it's just so smooth. They blend out beautifully and are just gorgeous. If you have not loved the markers when you've tried them with watercolor paper, please give them another shot with the Bristol Smooth cardstock because it really is a game changer with these markers. My bunny is going to be featuring this little kind of bluish purple scarf and trim on her dress and then a purple dress. If you've watched my videos at all through the years, you probably know I've mentioned, several times that I'm not much of a purple person. I have nothing against purple. It's just not my favorite. However, I have found myself drawn to these certain color combinations over and over, especially coming into the holiday season for whatever reason. I really love these kind of blues and purples together. These are some of my favorite color combinations, and I think they make just amazing colored images. I'm combining them with some great neutrals for the bunny and the bird. A little blue scarf for the bird. I did forget to color in the ice skates on the bird, but in the finished photos of the card, you'll notice that they are gray, that light gray as well. I colored them in before I took pictures of the card. As I put the card together, I realized that I forgot those. The hearts are going to be the same colors that are featured in the accessories and clothing on the animals with purple, blue, and then kind of a bluish violet. I'm die cut the images with the coordinating You Make My Heart Spin dies, adding some white dots to the cheeks on both the bird and the bunny, and taking a black pen and going over the eyes and then the nose. This always makes them pop, especially on animals or people images. And I'm ready to start putting it all together. So I'm going to pull my card back in here, and you can see that the vellum has buckled. And I really wanted to show this so that you would know that I did not actually do anything different, that I really did just let this sit and dry, and in the finished photos at the end of the video, you will see it's completely flat. So very, very excited that that worked out. I'm attaching the bunny and the bird with some foam adhesive squares to give them a little bit of dimension. I think they'll lay a little bit nicer next to the glassy surface of the little greeting strip / patch of ice. The same foam adhesive squares that I used for the frame. Here are those, I guess I did color the ice skates in on screen. I forgot I had the camera on. That's where I noticed I had forgotten. I'm going to add these little hearts coming up from in between the two critters. You could really leave it at that if you want to, but I went ahead and took it a step further, and I'm going to add some little dewdrops and confetti iridescent hearts throughout to just add to the scattering and the snowy love theme here of this card. And what's great, even though these images are dressed in winter accessories, this is not necessarily a holiday card. It could be if you wanted it to be. It's just kind of more of a love-themed card. You could use it as a thank you, depending on what you either write or stamp on the inside. This could be used for lots of different occasions, even winter birthdays. Anything will work. I'm using Ranger Multi-Matte Medium to glue the little clear dewdrops and the iridescent heart confetti pieces in place. Little tiny dabs of this with a Scrap Perfect applicator tool there on the end of my Ranger Multi-Matte Medium makes it very easy to create precise little dabs of glue. And I'm using the quick stick tool to pick up my little pieces, the confetti pieces especially, and put those in place. Just add a few more things here and there. Go ahead and let this sit and completely dry. And this card for the My Favorite Things sketch challenge is all finished. Thanks for joining me today for this simple mod rectangle frame featuring My Favorite Things stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring my favorite things that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.